Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video, this time around for Gears of War 4 for the Xbox One. A game that I beat recently with the help of another YouTuber here and a good friend of mine, Leo, the funny nerd. And he already had a review video, so I'm sure for those of you guys that are subscribed to him already watched that video. And he was very detailed in how the entire game is. And but you know, I decided to throw in my 2 cents as well. And you know, have that chance to talk about an Xbox One game on my channel, which is something that doesn't occur very often. As you guys know, I've never owned a Microsoft or an Xbox console before the Xbox One, so I'm still kind of new, you know, trying all these different exclusive games that are you know, that pertain to the Xbox One family, if you will. And I'm very happy I'm doing that, and I'm very happy that I'm giving a lot of love to my Xbox One lately. So expect to see another impressions video for another game soon. But focusing on Gears of War 4, I do have to say that the previous trilogy, which by the way came included with Gears of War 4, you know, they have like a code for the previous games so you can download them, which is pretty nice. I only played the first one, and funnily enough, you know, I played that game co-op once again with Leo. We were playing the remaster, the Gears of War 1 remaster on the Xbox One, and for one reason or another we stopped, we got sidetracked, and I want to say maybe we're halfway through that game. I'm not sure, we're gonna have to go back and check, but that's about the extent of my experience. So you know, we kind of did something, I guess, out of the ordinary. Instead of, you know, trying to focus on beating the first 3 games in the trilogy, we just jumped straight to the latest and greatest game in the series, the prettiest, obviously, this being the latest one. And you know, no regrets doing that. Of course, we probably missed out on a lot of the details of the Gears of War universe, but you know, we can always go back and do that, and in fact we're already planning on going back to the first Gears of War. But strictly speaking about Gears of War 4, even though there's a lot of things that happen in the story, you can still kind of have a general grasp of the events as far as the story. Basically, the story of Gears of War 4 takes many years later after the ending of the trilogy, in which everything seems to be in order as far as, you know, there are no more, you know, aliens, or the locust, I believe it's called, the race of like aliens that have attacked the humans. So everything is clear, but there are other things going on as far as there's like this very I guess authority, type of government that you fight at the beginning of the game. So at the beginning of the game, you're part of like this rebel group that fights the actual government itself that has all these robots in their army. So the beginning of the game was very you know, it reminded me a lot of Binary Domain on the PS3, which is a game that I absolutely love. Because, you know, it's a cover, you know, this being a third-person shooter that you cover and shoot, same exact deal as Binary Domain, and you shoot the robots and you can see their pieces flying off and things like that. So that was a very nice, I guess, throwback to the past on a game that I love, which is Binary Domain. So I was having a lot of fun with the early story of Gears of War 4. And then I guess minor spoilers, but then again, most of you have probably already played this game. You do end up facing the aliens very early in the game. I think during the first act, towards the end of the first act, you get introduced to the aliens again, which is something kind of like a surprise, because from what I understand, in the original trilogy, that was your whole goal of the of those games, you know, to eradicate the alien threat, you know, to the humans, and apparently that didn't work out. I don't know what happened, but the aliens, or the locust, I believe they're called, they're back in full force again, and so the game kind of shifts now, the focus, and you have to fight the aliens as well as the robots. And then I guess the main part of the story is that, you know, one of the leaders of this rebel group, she gets kidnapped, and the daughter of this lady that got kidnapped, she plays a key role because she's one of the protagonists in the game, and that's basically the story in a nutshell. You're trying to rescue these people that got kidnapped by the newly born aliens that happen to appear in there. So the story is somewhat simple, but then again, I don't think the Gears of War games have really shine for their story. There are mostly games that in the past, at least I remember when the first Gears of War game got released, even though I did not own an Xbox 360, I remember a lot of my friends, they were excited because at the time that game was cutting edge when it came to graphics. And I think these games, they always focus on graphical, elements, being a very impressive type of game in terms of graphics. And sure enough, Gears of War 4 it's one very, very nice looking game for the Xbox One. Perhaps I've seen better looking games, especially on the PS4. Not trying to be a fanboy or anything here, but with games like The Order 1886 and Uncharted 4, they look better in my opinion. But this game looks pretty well. Although I do have to say that the quality seems to drop a little bit when you play online co-op, which is understandable because you have two people at the same time. So the game does suffer a little bit in terms of performance. And in terms of frame drops, maybe that's related to the some kind of lag or the net code. So it wasn't the most perfect experience, but nevertheless, I thought it was a really nice looking game. Very colorful in a lot of areas, which is appreciated because the theme behind first-person shooters or third-person shooter nowadays seems to be they're always like gray and brown and dark. But Gears of War 4 had a lot of colorful areas in the game that they were just fun to explore. And it also had some dark areas as well, but it had a lot of variety in terms of I guess places that you can visit and things like that. So in that regard, I was very pleased with the graphics. Now in terms of the sound, the game is excellent. Very nice voice acting, pretty cool I guess soundtrack, if you will. Nothing spectacular, but the game is pretty cool in terms of having a lot of voice acting, a lot of cutscenes in between the chapters in the game. So that alone, I think it was something very nice. In terms of gameplay, third-person shooter, you guys know this is you take cover, you shoot, you take cover, you shoot. There were a lot of things that were very nice and interesting, but at the same time, a lot of annoying things. Like, in my opinion, as far as cover-based third-person shooter, I think The Division by Ubisoft, they kind of like set the bar high for me in terms of running from cover to cover and just the overall, I guess, weight and physics of using that cover mechanic. I think The Division did it really well. So I was a little bit spoiled with the already by having playing The Division a ton of 40, 50 hours, however many hours I put in that game. I was a little bit spoiled with the easiness of going from cover to cover and doing the same with another partner in the game. But Gears of War 4 feels a little bit more antiquated or dated. It's kind of hard sometimes to take cover and then jump straight over an obstacle. It feels like you have to do a two-step animation before you can do that. So there were minor things that bothered me a little bit, but nothing major. I think the gameplay overall, it was a very satisfying game. The shooting, the gunplay in the game was extremely satisfying. There's a lot of variety in the weapons in the game. You can get some crazy ones that I believe are not present in previous games. So in that regard, the game gives a lot of variety in terms of weapons and things like that. I do have to say that in a lot of parts of the game, the ammo was somewhat of an issue. So you do have to communicate with your partner when you're playing online co-op, because if there's an ammo box on the ground, if you grab it, the box is gone. Your partner cannot grab that ammo box. So you do have to ask and communicate, hey, do you have enough ammo for this particular weapon? Or if your partner is using let's say the Lancer, I believe it's called. The way we did it is Leo, he used the Lancer for most of the game, and I was using some other weapons, like the alien weapons and things like that. So we didn't run into one another in terms of ammo. So whenever I would see like a rifle or a Lancer on the ground, I will tell Leo, hey, there's some Lancer ammo here on the ground, so he would come and pick that up. And it's an actual element of the game, the communication, just to make sure you have enough ammo, because as you know, in this game there's a lot of shooting in that regard, which leads me to the enemies in this game. They're pretty varied, but I do have to say that overall I thought this game was it started on a very high note. As I mentioned earlier in the video, it was very similar to Binary Domain, which is a game that I love. So I really enjoyed fighting the robots. I really enjoyed the early levels in the game, the design of the levels, and then you start fighting the aliens, which is fine, and then the game became a little bit too repetitive towards the middle and late chapters, in my opinion. So it started to become a little bit annoying for me personally. A lot of the alien enemies were recycled. A lot of the mini bosses were recycled, and it feels like the game, upped the, for example, the resistance or the health of the enemies just because you're progressing farther into the game, which is something that I really hate. So there's not really a feeling of, yeah, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting better at the game. It's quite the opposite. It's kind of like demoralizing. The more you advance in the game, the harder it takes to kill enemies, the harder it takes to defeat mid bosses that you previously faced in the game. And these mid bosses are recycled a lot towards the middle and the late part of the game. So it's kind of annoying because a lot of them are bullet sponges that you just have to spend a lot of ammo, a lot of bullets just to kill one of them. And sometimes the game, to throw a bigger challenge at you, they throw like two mini or mid bosses your way, which is something that it's kind of like it's challenging, which is fine, but at the same time it's annoying because, as I mentioned, these enemies are bullet sponges, and even though we played the game on normal, it was starting to get a little bit frustrating just shooting at the enemies. Like some of them had, for example, the belly was their weak area, so you have to aim there, and then you unload, you just keep unloading your rifle in them, and you use ammo, and then you have to just shoot all the time, and then it takes a while to defeat them. So that was a little bit annoying. That's why I'm saying the game started on a very high note, and then it dropped down and as the game progressed, and then towards the end, as Leo mentioned in his review, I'm sure some of you guys already watched this, and minor spoilers, I guess, in the last act of the game, you do get to use mechs in this game. So that's when the game, in my opinion, picked up again, because it was starting to get a little bit monotonous in terms of facing the same old enemies, the same old mid bosses and things like that. So the game started high, it kind of dropped, and then it went back up as far as my overall enjoyment. And as I mentioned, the last act, you get to use the mechs, these huge mechs, in order to eradicate or defeat the alien threat, or the locust, whatever these things are called. So even though, like I said, I haven't played any, I have only played the first one, and I haven't really completed the first one, there were a lot of, I think, story elements that you can kind of connect as you're playing the game. A lot of events that happened in the previous 3 games that you can kind of figure out by yourself. So I think it'll be interesting going back, now that I know a lot of the things, going back to the original 3 games and playing those. Of course, you're a little bit spoiled in terms of what's going to happen, but I think it'll be fun nevertheless, going back to the early Gears of War games, it'll be kind of tough considering those are 360 games. So I'm about to experience like a graphical downgrade and maybe some gameplay downgrades as well. But I'm excited to play the first 3 games, and I think there's another one, Judgment, I believe. I don't know if it's a spin-off or whatever, but that code is also included in the as part of this game. So I might as well try that game at one point. But overall, Gears of War 4 was a very fun third-person shooter. I wouldn't call it the best third-person shooter. I played better games, but I had a lot of fun playing this game online with Leo. It was a very nice experience. The game is not very long. I want to say it took us maybe, I don't know, 8 to 10 hours maybe. I'm not really sure. but we did have a couple of game sessions, and I think we both had a pretty good time with the game, and yeah, glad to finally put the Xbox One to good use, and I'm excited again to go back and explore the series a little bit more. So that's it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all later.